going, guys? So we have another desk update. This guy is looking pretty fantastic. Quite pleased with him. So I'll take you around kind of the key parts of him that have been an issue or haven't been an issue or have worked particularly well or haven't. So I started from focus. Naughty. Right, it doesn't want to macro. So I started with the chipping. In terms of the detailed parts of this model, I started with the chipping on the armor, which I definitely believe I went over the top with. I wanted to kind of get into the swing of freehand. This is the first time I've used a small brush in forever. Dropped down to an AO 00, incredible brush. I find that basically I love using big brushes so much that I use a 4 if I can. If I can't use a 4, I use a 3. If I can't use a 3, I skip to a 1, and if I can't use a 1, I skip all the way to a 00, because if it's below that size, then I need something really teeny tiny. Absolute beast of a brush. So they're kind of my 4 go-tos in terms of traditional brush shapes. I followed the Eavy Metal guide for the chipping. So you put down a lighter stage of yellow on, just like you paint your armor normally, and then you put down random splotches of, mine is a mix of Flash Gits yellow, Avalanche Sunset, and Skull White. So you end up with this kind of creamy light yellow. That's stippled down randomly, and then within that I put down a new colour which I've not used before, which I'm actually quite impressed with. Sometimes mix with Doomball Brown, but actually I think it just works neat. That's Word Bearer's Red, which is kind of a really, really rusty red, so it jumps out quite nicely. Really does the job perfectly. And then within that I have just been using the same Vallejo paint, but I've been adding black and blue to it to make a darker version, kind of more bolt gunny, and then using it neat for the highlights. So you dot within them the bolt gun equivalent, and then selectively you put the lighter pure neat version of that silver, which is really, it's a super bright silver. You put that elsewhere, but he's come out really well. Thoughts in general about the model. The skin is probably the weakest part at this point. I need to go up to kind of a more slightly muted bony tone. I think so. I'll add in something there like a khaki color, or maybe even an ivory or something like that, and that will be used for the highlights. He's quite a hard model to highlight well. I found particularly on the skin the shapes aren't so obvious, and it could just be that I'm out of practice with this type of stuff. I've been like speed batching dry brushing for a long time, and my delicacy has kind of really stepped off. So that's why I wanted to do the chipping before attempting any of the freehand. So I did the chipping and then did some further details. I have really struggled with the horns. Like really, I'm one of my key weaknesses as a painter is like painting straight lines down a spherical object is just impossible for me. Like if I meant to do this, it ends up like, which is dreadful. So the way that I've got around that, and I discovered it a little bit too late when some of the detail had been obscured from repainting. So it's worked out really well on this horn, but you can see what happens when I don't have a guide to follow on this horn. Way worse. I painted the horns with airbrushing, so they were base coated with a brush because you can't remove these in ivory, basically. It doesn't matter which ivory, I use the AK one. So ivory, and then what I've done is I airbrushed like a bleach bone equivalent, and then I moved to a lot of the colours that are elsewhere on the model. So Scrag Brown, Doomball, and then Doomball plus black. And that worked out really well. I did end up hitting the face a little bit, so in retrospect, again, should have done this off the model, but you know, it's a test model, it's here for learning. So I've gone through those stages, and then I washed the lot just with a mid-brown wash, and that pulled in the recesses, and that gave me something to follow. And if I've got something to follow, I'm not having to imagine the straight lines, and I can do it dabby style. It's way easier. So that's why this one's turned out really well, and I'm actually genuinely pleased with that. It's probably one of the best horns I've painted. My other idea with these horns was just to have them kind of going, staging through those same colours, getting darker towards the end with the airbrush, and then just pick the top one and do like a glint. I could have even varnished them for this effect, which is something that I want to try and use gloss matte, like the finish of the paints really intelligently around the model. I'm still debating on whether that's a good idea. These ones are going to be really hard to do because they're short and they've got pretty much naffle texture on them. Quite a few things on this model have been stripped and repainted so many times they have lost detail, which is kind of, it's evident in places where it's harder to do a good job on them than I would like. And I really struggle with stuff like this anyway. I think I used a wash that was too dark on there. It's kind of come out looking a little bit gritty, so that's my fault for not using a more browny tone rather than a black. As far as the things that I'm pretty pleased with, this blade turned out quite well. I got some advice on it. I think the scratches are all too uniform in terms of their colour. So what I should have done is done a load of scratches, done a couple of stages of the wash, which is just Ultra Blue and black mixed with glaze medium. Done that, done some more scratches, and then done that, and then done some more scratches. And then what you'll have is you'll have some that look older and darker and some that look newer and brighter. But all of this kind of detail work, the slight cross-hatching on the robes, that's been done earlier on before I went for this stuff, because I needed to get my eye in. The trousers have turned out really, really well, and what they are is scrag brown, and then it's literally just like 3 or 4 brown wash stages with mid brown. So mixed a little bit of glaze medium in there and was just patient, just like one stage all over, let it dry, another stage all over, let it dry, another stage all over, let it dry, and then a couple of highlights there. But what you end up using, that color combination, is you end up with this really deep, like slightly shiny looking, because of the finish of the washes, leathery stuff. And then I've done a couple of little cross hatches on there just to kind of suggest that they're scratched up, a bit cartoony, but the model's pretty cartoony in general. And then moving on to kind of like the money part of it, is the squiggles. So once I had my eye in, I knew what I was doing, but far more than I did at the beginning anyway, not that it's gone perfectly. I felt that I'd got to grips with kind of all the things you need for freehand, which is like dilution, amount of paint on brush, and control. And actually the control is way less important than you think. Like if you've got a brush behaving exactly how it should, with exactly the right amount of paint on, with exactly the right dilution, the job, I don't know what factor it is, it's probably literally like 5 times easier or 5 times harder to screw up in a way that matters or something like that. So once I had that down, I was in a space where I could just, I could rock on, and I tried on the these shin armour, knee armour, whatever they are, protectors first. They came out kind of okay, and then once I got a bit more confidence and kind of got my technique down, which is basically to do them all in sections. So to exaggerate, I'll do like an initial triangle like this, and then I'll carefully try and pull a line off to the edge, and then a line off to the edge. And if you've got paint leaving your brush easily, it's easy to fix kind of whoopsies and mistakes without making another mistake. If the paint is not leaving the brush easily, then when you try and fix your mistakes, you just get clumsier and bigger and clumsier and bigger, and you end up kind of having to repaint the entire thing. These ones were touched up with yellow around the edge, just like in a couple of areas just to make them sharper. These ones I actually didn't need to touch up because I had my technique down, and what I'd done is basically I'd gone to a new brush, not a beaten up one. That, like, unsurprisingly, that makes a difference. And my dilution was just better. So I'm using really dark, potent colors. This is a mix of Vallejo 950 black and Ultra Blue, which is just Ultra Blue is the deepest, bluest saturated blue ever. It's a massive favorite paint of mine. And both of those flow incredibly well. Diluted it just with water, probably about 50-50. And then the big thing is, you'll see this on any pictures, my left hand is just completely covered in little dabs, and it's removing the right amount of paint off your brush. So when you get there, you've got a sharp point, but there's still enough for it to leave easily and flow out of the bristles. And then I've kind of skirted around the pads doing this stuff here. I wanted them to look a little bit funky and Tim Burton-y. I followed there's a gorgeous Mega Boss in the IRONJAWZ book, which has this type of stuff on it, and I looked at that once and was like, okay, I think I've got a rough idea of that. Did those, and then from that, there was one of them that was slightly hooked over in the book, and that's where I kind of drew my inspiration from for these. But I struggle with, like, if you ask me to paint a skull, like a skull, I'd have to have a skull like here on a tablet or printed off or something, like blown up massively, even with marks drawn on it for myself to show which is like which quarter is what. I often paint round things because then I compare them to a clock face. So let's say it's a wolf, its nose is going to be at 2 o'clock, its tail will be at 8 o'clock, it's got a foot at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that type of stuff. It really helps me know exactly where is where is what, I need an orientation. Then I sketch out these points, join them together, they look like a star constellation, and then pad out the details. With this stuff, I didn't have to do that because it's a bit more of a free and easy design, and the only rules I followed were I didn't want these to be on top of scratches if possible, because the scratches are quite dark and it makes the edges of them look less crisp, and I didn't want them to touch each other, which I pretty much managed apart from I think one point, which was literally like the last one I did, Sod's Law. So that is him overall. Pretty pleased with how he's come out. It has taken forever, like literally one of these leg pads took me as long as a recent entire Great Unclean one, start to finish. It's about expectations though. I knew what I was excuse me, I knew what I was walking into doing a test model at this standard going in. There's plenty of stuff I want to get better. I'm completely unhappy with the base. I've had some good advice on that as well, so I'm going to bring it down, and I might even try something quite funky, like a really dark one with plenty of matte black washes in there, and then maybe make the skulls glowing or something like that. I've still got access to red on the model. It's nowhere apart from the eyes, so I'm wondering if there's something I can do with that. Maybe that would be, I really like red banners. It's kind of classic, isn't it? So maybe red banners will be something that is kind of present on the army. That is him though. Let's see if I can get into these details and actually make them focus a bit better. Maybe not. Doesn't want to. But anyway, they look great. I've got a load of pictures up on our Twitter. So if you want to have a closer look, they're on Twitter, and we'll get them on Instagram and Facebook as well as soon as possible. But that is it. That is pretty much test model done. I need to finish off the horns when I get some time. I'll do that maybe on the weekend, and then I'll have a 100% finished model. I do not expect my army to end up looking like this, but I've learned enough here and made enough mistakes that I can take things in the direction. Like I'm an experienced enough painter to know, like, right, that skin is okay, but I want it to be less saturated, and I want the highlights to go up to bone to be able to just apply that to my next model. And also, to be honest, I'm just sick of staring at this guy. It's been a long time since I've spent this much time on a model. And yeah, so key things I'll change. The skin will change on the models. I'm happy with the bone. I'm happy with that little blue detail. The horns, if I can get them like that, that would be phenomenal. We'll see how that goes. Pants, fantastic. Like, that is going to be throughout the army. Really like that. I think it's a solid effect, and it doesn't mess with any of the other colors on the model. The chipping, I need to, like, a bit less of it and in the middle, and a bit more of it on the edges is what I need to go for. And the refinements that I spoke about on the blade as well, stuff like that is going to hopefully be more evident. But that's the guy. If you have any thoughts, any questions, you want to know how I did any bits of it, like super in depth, or if you want to literally see me like recording me doing some details from it, by all means, just please pop the questions below. And yeah, that is it. So less talking about armies in this one. I've had some thoughts. I've been writing lists, not been playing games, but I've got some thoughts about a kind of refined version of the list, and I think it's going to come out at about 19 models, 18 models, something like that. So I feel this is just about a realistic expectation. We'll see though, the moment I paint a Gore Grunter, that could change, because these guys are kind of, this is going to be heavy work. It's a big dude and he's not lacking in detail. But yeah, we'll see if I've bitten off more than I can chew. All right, thank you very much for watching. Please give the video a like if you liked it. Please subscribe, hit that bell notification, all that jazz, and do check out our FACEHAMMER dice on the website. They're pretty funky and they stand out wherever you are. Really, really like clear dice. So we've picked ones that you're going to be able to see across the table in a badly lit room, even with a sharp light like bouncing off them or something like that. Really does make a difference. Thank you very much. I will catch you soon.